I had the most absurd nightmare. I was poor and no one liked me. I lost my job, I'd lost my house, Penelope hated me, and it was all because of this terrible man, Lou Diamond.
Hey Thrive Loud listeners, it's winter. There's a lot of things you're just gonna have to let go in this season, like the sun, the flowers, and the feeling of your feet, and so on. But there's one thing that you shouldn't let go. The Thrive Loud podcast, hosted by Lou Diamond. Just sing Let It Go at the top of your lungs. And remember that in the midst of this freezing winter where you're feeling like you just hate life, Lou Diamond will never let you go. Neither would Olaf. So go listen to this episode and more, because it's not like you're going to be doing anything better outside right now.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have an award-winning Canadian-American documentary film director and television producer. That's a first, right off the bat. He's best known for Why I'm Not on Facebook, Why I'm Not on Pokemon Go, Bar Rescue, and Extreme Weight Loss. He is the CEO of INvelop Entertainment, host of the podcast Why I'm Not, based on the film series of the same name, and contributing writer for Forbes. He also heads up Reject Average, a group with a mission to bring exceptional experiences to like-minded individuals that are looking to do things outside their daily routines. The man who will remind you that no pitch should ever exceed 3 minutes. Thrive Loud fans, Brant Pinvidic. Brant, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. That's an intro. That is an intro.
So as most people will know, Brant is an exciting individual, as you've just learned about his whole bio. He's got energy through the roof. And he just came back this past weekend from what had to have been one of the coolest fishing experiences. And that's where actually I want to start today. Share with the Thrive Loud fans what you just did, because this was amazing.
Well, we did, 6 of us went on this really cool yacht. We went out of San Diego. We went bluefin tuna fishing to the Bank of Cortez, which is 105 miles offshore. And so in that boat, it took us 12 hours to get there. So we slept through the night while we were driving. We got there, and the bluefin tuna were going crazy. So we're catching 100-pound bluefin tuna. We caught our limit in about 3 hours, and then we turned around and went back home. So this
was my favorite part. My favorite part was he captured this on Instagram. They cut open one of the fish on one of the tunas on top of the boat while the sun was setting, and they ate sashimi later that evening, right? That's what I'm guessing happened.
Off the fish. Yeah, it was amazing. It was a crazy experience, and it's part of my adventure club. That's kind of the things we do. I find these really cool, outrageously wild, fun experiences, and I put the package together. I send it out to all the people in my club, and whoever wants to go, the first in get to go, and we go do these crazy fun things. So it's been great. I've been having a blast.
I think that's a great way to start this whole conversation off, Brant, because you are a blast. You're a high energy person. You have been doing things, and I think this is interesting. You do the thing that's a little bit different than normal and just about everything that's out there, whether it's Why I'm Not on Facebook, your shows, the Reject Average concept. Is that what you've always been about? A little bit, just a little different than everyone else?
Yeah, it definitely is, and I think it stems from my Canadianness. There's a certain culture of being Canadian, which is so great and amazing in so many ways. But other ways, it's kind of a little stifling, and I just didn't fit. I was a little bit of a square peg in the round hole type thing in that environment, and so it sort of built this idea that I always wanted to be a little bit outside the box, and I could never get accolades or acceptance in that. I was always sort of ostracized for my strange ideas and my sort of big aspirations. And sort of I was always that guy that was the crazy, goofy guy who had all these ridiculous ideas. And then moving to the United States like 14 years ago, it was the complete opposite. I was so embraced, and I was so sort of accepted, and people appreciated my sort of out of the box ideas, and there was potential there. And that just sort of like stuck with me. And that became my sort of a big piece of my values. I like doing things big and bold and different. So it's sort of ingrained in my personality now.
And I love this. I had the pleasure of hearing you in the fall of 2018 hear you speak about the uniqueness of how people pitch business, because you have been in a very, very competitive world of television and obviously getting shows produced, documentary films. And this is stuff that's not easy to win business, so to speak. But you really have kind of honed in on some of the key factors on how to make a pitch successful. Can you hint a little bit into this unique mindset that you've had from the world of Hollywood that actually relates to just about anybody else?
Yeah, it's been amazing, this sort of crossover. I never would have expected that. If I back up and tell you a little bit how I got into it is, a couple of years ago, I had sold my company, had done pretty well, but I sold my company back to the company that I had left when I went and formed it. So I had to go back and sort of work the job that I had left. So it was not a happy time. And I found like, what am I doing? So I was looking in this sort of like how to spice things up and do stuff. So I started saying yes to everything. Anything anybody asked me, I decided I was going to say yes. Brought in a bunch of weird things, but fun stuff. And one of the guys was an investment banker out of Florida. And he basically said, will you come teach my clients to do what you do? And I was like, oh my God, yes, I will. But like, I can't teach people how to sell reality TV shows. Like, you got to be in the business. And he's like, no, I want you to come and show people how to pitch their business and their ideas without putting them to sleep. And when I got to Florida and I met his sort of the oil and gas companies and the biotech companies and the small cap public companies that he was working with, I understood what he meant, because these were scientists and oil guys trying to make 20-minute presentations on the story of their business to high-level sophisticated investors. And they were great CEOs. They were great scientists. They were not good pitching and presenting exactly like that wasn't their world. And so what I learned quickly is that the value of what I was able to do on TV, from a simplifying your message, using Hollywood storytelling techniques to sort of lead an audience to your conclusion, was really valuable in these areas. And I was able to show these CEOs and companies how to simplify their message. And what I find a lot of times is they were being taught the stuff we were always taught growing up, selling and pitching and presenting in sort of the personality style and the way you have to do it. And really, in the last decade, everything has changed. Everybody's doing decision by committees now. The attention span is shorter than a goldfish. And it's so much harder. And we have a hypersensitive audience. They are so sensitive to being sold things and to detecting bullshit. They're just really sensitive. And so in Hollywood, it's a macro version of that. And I learned quickly, you have to simplify your message. That clarity is the new compelling. You know what I mean? That information is the new power that you're trading. And if you can simplify your message, deliver your information cleanly, clearly, and concisely, that is the most powerful pitch and presentation you can do. And it's been going really well. People are really responding to it. So I'm really excited about it.
Let's go through some of the transformations. Have you seen someone that you've helped work with that originally didn't have a really good message, and then after kind of giving your message, the impactful bang that they came up with was really great? Something you could share?
I've had several. Even the first one I did was an oil and gas company out of the Midwest. And, it's a really cool story, because I sat there and listened to his presentation. It was 17 minutes in, and I couldn't understand I didn't know why his company was even interesting. But at some point he had said something about being able to still drill for oil at $32 a barrel. And oil was tanking like crazy at the time. It was down around 37. And so after the presentation, I said, how did you think it went? I was like, well, it's a little long and confusing. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. And so I asked him, I said, did I hear you say you can still drill oil at $32 a barrel where everybody else is laying their rigs down at 37 or 36 or whatever? He's like, yeah. So I was like, could you explain that? So we went into it. And literally that night in his hotel, we restructured his entire presentation. And, we went the next day to do the same presentation, the same conference the next day. And everything was so different, because he basically opened that pitch and presentation with the idea of, this is why my company is interesting. We have land that we've secured with oil rights that were unexpected, and here are the elements, and we can still drill at 32. Everybody else laying their rigs down at 36. And it was like his whole presentation went from 25 minutes to 7 minutes with all the SEC regulation stuff and everything. And he got more questions and more interaction than he'd ever gotten before. And at the end of the day, like, he used that presentation for the next year. His stock went up like crazy. And I started realizing, like, holy crap, I got to charge more money, and I should and I've had a few. I had a friend of mine literally just closed $10 million in funding for his app that we crafted I crafted the presentation from scratch with him. And it was just the most exciting thing ever, because it's not in entertainment. And so I've had a really good run with that.
Hey there! If you're enjoying how Lou is connecting with this guest in this interview, then just imagine how impactful he can be in person. As an international speaker and consultant, Lou Diamond is all about getting organizations to thrive through the power of connecting. To learn more about how you can hire Lou to speak at your company, your conference, or your next event, head on over to loudiamond.net and click the Book Lou button to learn more. He'll truly get everyone to thrive loud. All right, let's get back to the show.
I want to ask this question because I think this is the real mystery. Do you think it's one of two things or a combination? I'll give you the options of why people feel they need to talk longer than they do when they're trying to communicate their message. You think it's that they don't have their message organized, or they love the fact they feel that telling a story requires a little bit of justification and build up and everything, versus, I think you had shared an example here that the average television executive hears something like 1,000 ideas for pitches for TV shows, and they only pick like single digits, like 4 or 5 or 6 a year.
100%
so
right.
So what do you think it is in most people who present that they go in almost with the wrong mindset, or do they get just like they feel the need to say everything and they lose the plot?
Yeah, I mean, there's two main reasons that this becomes more complicated than people overcomplicate their message. One is what I teach a lot of confidence, not on a personal level, but on an information level. And what happens is that you have the greater your desire to achieve your outcome, the more likely you become promotional. And so what that means is that the more you need to sell or present or have this go well, the more likely you become promotional about it. And you want to say it more, you want to say it loud, you want to say it often. So it builds this idea that you really need this to happen. Whereas if you end up in a position where you have real confidence in your information, you can convey that. You don't need to say it as many times. You don't need to say it perfectly. You don't need to say it loudly, in using big adjectives. So that's the first one that I find that is really tough for people to get. But the other one, which is harder even, is the fact that you live with your information on such a deep level that you believe that other people will see what you feel and understand about your presentation the way you feel about it. And the problem is that an audience needs to be led. And if I use the example in Hollywood, every single screenwriter that writes a screenplay believes that their movie is great. When they read it, they love it because they understand the characters, they understand the nuance, they know the motivation, and they understand how the story works. The difference between an average screenwriter and the best screenwriters in the world is the best screenwriters are able to make you understand their information the way they do. You see the script and you see the story the way they do. And the problem is if you live with your information day in, day out, you can't discern which pieces are valuable, what order they need to come in. It's really hard. And I struggled with this. I sold a book to Random House and I'm just delivered the manuscript. And it's like, it's taken me so long to write the intro to it. Everything else came naturally, but the intro is sort of like a pitch of what the whole book is. And so here I am writing a definitive sort of manual on how to pitch and present. And I'm struggling for weeks and weeks to finish this intro, to the point where I had to make up stories to the editor, why I haven't done it yet, because I could not get through it. And what it was is that I craft and create pitches and presentations so often at such a high level for so many years that I do it naturally as the information comes into my mind. If you and I are working and you're a client, I hear your information about your business and what you're trying to do. I'm already forming the pitch. And the book was the first time that I spent with the detailed information I had for 6 months. living it inside of me. I knew every chapter, every word. I believed it. I was so excited about it. And I fell into the same thing that my clients do, where I was so desperate to get it all out there that I couldn't get my intro to 3 pages. My first one was 12 pages. And it's like, for a guy who teaches how to simplify information, I should have been able to do that right away. I had to literally go back to square one and start with my process to whittle down the information and find it and finally get into 3 pages. So if I struggle with that, you can imagine what it's like for everybody else as well. It's hard to distill what really matters. You want to say everything, not just what needs to be said.
It's so true, Brant. And this is really interesting. We have a lot of listeners on Thrive Loud that are entrepreneurs, heads of companies. And a lot of time these people, they're communicating to the board. They're communicating internally to their team. They've got a great business idea. They're selling to the public. And they have many different voices, for lack of a better word, and messages. And one of the best breakouts I'd ever seen, a certain company actually had a whole file, and they named the file, "This is the stuff we talk about internally. This is the way we sell it externally." And it was really funny because if you looked at even the amount of data that was in like the file size of the stuff externally, it was a third of the size of the stuff that was inside, because they recognize that we can't speak the same language, even though we're doing it all day long. And you're right. That's the spot that top executives are in. And even you got into it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I want to spin on this because this is a good point. You're messaging all these ideas. When it came to putting together this really cool reject average and this new focus of fun things that you're doing, do you think that by doing these things that are unique experiences, and when you describe what they are you using the same practice that you do with your regular pitch and your entertainment side of the business?
I mean, I don't think so. It's a good thing. I've never even had that question. I never thought about it that way. And this has sort of come out of the blue for me. Really what happened was I started doing fun things that I really like doing. And then everybody in my world, my friends, my peers and stuff were like, "Hey, I'd like to go do that." I was like, "Okay, well, I'll put you on my email list when next time I go fishing or skiing or snowmobiling or whatever it is." And that list went from 30 to 300 to 500 pretty quickly. And now I'm sort of in the mode where it's like, "Hey, I like doing this. I like putting this stuff." So I'm going to make it a little bit more sort of an official capacity and, really explore this. So, but it's going to be done as a nonprofit. I'm just doing it for fun. It's kind of my own, it's like, it's a little bit my sort of like half retirement play. I'm taking a little bit of a step back from the day to day of running a TV company. I'm out to find a better sense of balance in life. I spent a lot of years working really hard, chasing paychecks and dollars and stuff. And I just found I got to the point where it's like, why am I doing this again? So
I'm going to share with the Thrive Loud. I'm going to share with the Thrive Loud listeners. Brant and I took the elevator down after he gave a presentation to a whole bunch of speakers, which is, by the way, challenging because he was a little bit anxious and he delivered a great message. Everybody loved it. And we're sitting there and I started telling him that, my goal was to speak X number of times and see this much. And Brant is a very desired speaker out there. And he comes to me and he goes, "I want to work as little as possible right now." I literally don't want, he goes, "Whatever you just said, which looked like a lot of effort, I want to do the exact opposite of that."
Oh man, it's so funny. Well, like I said, if you want to get your speaking fees up, no problem. Just say no to everything.
That's right.
That's the easiest way. And listen, I might be in a little bit of like a sort of like a find what I really want to do haze. I do love the speaking. I love consulting. And now that I'm not in the day-to-day of TV, I'm finding I'm able to do that more. I'm able to do that with people that I have Fortune 100 clients and I have plumbing contractors. Like it's the craziest world right now. And I'm writing a new Forbes article that comes out next week. And it's basically on the idea of practicing for success, not planning for how to get there. We all do that as entrepreneurs and businessmen, but practicing and planning for what happens when you actually get there. Like if the coyote catches the roadrunner, like what does the coyote do next? And the process of chasing that roadrunner every day, all day, creates a certain personality.
Right.
And I think that I'm trying to sort of practice wanting to be a different style of person in success so that I don't become the person that is only interested in chasing success. And that's been it's not easy to do and it takes practice, but I think that, most of us in business, we spend so much time plotting our way to become successful and we spend zero time thinking about what we're going to do this when we get there.
So here's a great question that we ask most of the guests here on Thrive Loud, Brant, and that is, on days when you're off and you're not totally peaking and all the cylinders are firing and you're basically not thriving, what practice do you do, or what individual do you seek out to try to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Well, I do it in two ways, and it's been pretty good. The first is I try to match intensity of what I brought to my business life. I found that I would be very intense and driven in business and life, and then I would turn everything off when I'd get home or go on vacation or have a weekend. And that created a sort of a pattern of, if I'm not working, I'm not feeding off my energy. And so I started to become more intense and more energetic about projects that I did outside of work. And whether that was like, taking my kids to the beach by myself without my wife when they were young, I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat this like I would any project. I'm going to do it at the highest level, and I'm going to achieve amazing success. All three kids are going to come home alive, and like, this is going to be amazing. Like that, for me, that started to become a good pattern where I brought that energy. And then the other thing is, as simple as it sounds, is that I've taken up like deeper looks at appreciation. I try to look at the things in my life and try to remember what it would have been like before I had them. Because if you went to myself 10 years ago and you came to my house or drove my car or any of these things, I would have been like, oh my God, that's it. I would never need anything else. That'd be the most amazing thing. I'd be so happy. And we're all like that. And so it's like, I don't want to feel gratitude or excitement or a thrill of acquiring things. I'm trying to take more pleasure in having the things than simply going out and getting them. Because otherwise you need to always go get new stuff.
Yeah.
And that's expensive. So then you got to go make more money, which takes a lot of time. And that means all you're doing is working.
Yeah, but that's a perfect description that you're appreciating, I guess, that moment too, which is sometimes overlooked. And I think that's key. Brant, I send out, and you will now be part of this distribution, because what the Thrive Loud listeners that are not guests on the program don't know is that once you become a guest, you become part of this inquiry. When we have certain guests, it's not to every guest. We send out a message to that guest on what you would like to know about this upcoming guest. And in this particular case, it was Brant Pinvidic. So I got 5 requests and 5 questions for the obvious question: how's the turkey doing? Maybe we can explain to the Thrive Loud community your love of animals. Is that the best way to describe it?
Yeah, I run an animal rescue foundation. I have 3 acres here in LA, and so I rescued horses, I rescued turkeys, I rescued ducks, peacock, I had goats and pigs, and I got 6 dogs, and I got chickens, and I got a pile of cats. And so what I do is I foster and I raise money and I help sort of animal rescue process. And that's been turned into sort of a really fun passion. And I've been surprised how much joy it's brought other people. My turkey became rather famous, Albert the turkey. And I'll tell you, I produced a lot of television in my life, and not once did anybody have the reaction that people have had for that turkey. They just absolutely loved him. And it's been an interesting world to see how animals sort of react and cause sort of joy in people's lives. It's been a very rewarding experience.
For the Thrive Loud listeners, we'll make sure to see it. But the most impressive part is the turkey actually comes and hugs Brant. But what's even better is that one of his dogs, I believe, tries to come near Brant while he's hugging him, and the turkey pecks at the dog. Get away! Yeah. This is my Brant.
That's right. It's a whole thing. Let me tell you.
So, Brant, let's do this now. Let's get the administrative things, because I got a bunch of other fun questions for us.
Cool.
Share with the Thrive Loud community all the places that people can learn about Brant Pinvidic, upcoming things. You have something coming up in 2019, which is kind of exciting. You've alluded to it. So why don't you share with the listeners all that stuff?
So you can reach me anywhere on the social media platforms at Brant Pinvidic. At some point, my Reject Average Travel Club will be up, so you can go to rejectaverage.com and see all about that. And what's great is, for the next few months or a while, part of that, most of 2019, I'm just out cruising around, having a great time, working with people, helping as many people as I can. At some point, I got to put the train in gear, because I have a Random House book coming out in October. So I'll have to get all promotional and try to sell some books. But for now, I'm just out to have some fun. So always like connecting with new people and learning about stuff that's going on and helping where I can. So.
Thrive Loud listeners will learn that Brant is truly the real deal. He's exactly everything you see when you see him, and he's got a great smile whenever you walk into the room. I've got 2 last questions that I know our listeners would appreciate. The first is, if you had an opportunity to speak to any audience to share a lot of the key things that you've been speaking about of late, is there one conference or group that you would basically be like, yeah, that would be really cool if I got a chance to do that?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I don't know. I've been across a lot of them lately. I spent a lot of times in high schools right now, the last sort of like coming through before the school year started. And that was really rewarding. There's a bit of a wave for entrepreneurial spirit right now in the marketplace. And I think these high school kids are now looking at some of the the people out there, the Gary Vaynerchuks out there that are sort of like kind of rock stars for being entrepreneurs, and Mark Cuban and those kind of guys. And that's new. And so for me, I love seeing that next generation sort of rising up and appreciating the sort of the strive that it is to be an entrepreneur and what that's like. So that's been really exciting for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Those guys.
You really do have a philanthropic give back kind of a thing, which is so awesome. Well, so Canadian of you.
Yeah, well, listen, and I say to be honest, it's like that side of your nature. Everybody has that. It's just a little easier to access when you're in a place in your life that you're sort of in a good place. Like the philanthropic nature of what I do sort of has evolved as my career has sort of done well and allowed me to do these kind of things. And I think that's. So it's part and parcel with sort of other people as well. It's like the better sort of you do in your own world, the more you can sort of give back and find other ways to make, people in their worlds do well. And listen, it's pretty rewarding, so, and I kind of need that. I'm an insecure kind of guy. So I like people telling me thank you and this was so great. And so it's like, I like to chase that a little bit.
So Brant, signature question here at Thrive Loud, your all-time favorite movie?
Well, I mean, that's a tough one because I have them in different categories. I would say my all-time movie, the one that's straight down the middle, is Braveheart by a good leap. So that's my big one, Braveheart.
What is the reason that movie connects the most with you?
Because of the awesomeness. I mean, come on,
that's so true.
It's like it's just amazing. So, but I have some like 80s cult classic, like The Last Dragon is my sort of personal favorite of all time, that kind of stuff. So.
It's a spectacular movie, and it's with good music on top of all of it.
Right. So, I mean, listen, I'm a pretty poppy kind of guy. So there you go.
Brant Pinvidic, this has been truly a pleasure. Thanks again, man, for coming on the show.
Anytime.
You got it, man. And to all the Thrive Loud listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
And dying in your bed many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.